Hey folks, Michael Collins here, EnviroReporter.com. As you know, we have collected the US EPA's RadNet air monitoring data and made it simple to get at state by state. There's 123 sites across the United States that the US EPA detects for beta and gamma radiation. Problem is, not all the beta detectors work, and beta is what we're concerned with because radionuclides like the radionuclides pouring out of Fukushima's triple meltdown, which began March 11th, 2011. They're cesium-137, strontium-90. These are beta emitters. These are the ones we're looking for to see if it's hot or not across the United States from man-made sources, such as Fukushima. Now, not all the monitoring beta stations are functioning. And as of July 21st, a couple days ago, 42 out of the possible 123 beta stations were actually working. But there were enough working that we were able to note that it seems that there's a trend this week to higher radiation across the country. For example, if you look down here at Montgomery, Alabama, its beta graph is working, and it hit 155 counts per minute July 18th. Now this is how this beta gross count rate works. It's counts per minute, and readings of about 100 counts per minute or more indicate significant beta radiation activity. And some people consider 100 a threshold as being around 3 times background in many instances. And 3 times background is a significant threshold to be concerned about. So when we say Montgomery, Alabama had 155 on July 18th, we're talking about this right there. See that? But if you look back in May, they hit over 300. That's about 320 counts per minute. Now, you can look here on this graph, and normal radiation numbers in the beta range are down in here. So when you get something this high, there's something going on. What it is, we don't know, but we do know it's beta radiation. So this is the beta radiation for the last week for Montgomery, Alabama. Anchorage, Alaska's beta graph is working again, and as you can see, it is quite low. This is what we like to see. It's way down there. But you go to Phoenix, there's Fairbanks. You go to Phoenix, and it's been jumping around, and in the last couple of days it was up over 100. I put that at about 115 maybe. As you can see, it's been higher before. Here's Tucson. Tucson's been quite active, and in the last couple of days it's hit right there, looks to be about 240 counts per minute. Now, if you want to know, okay, what does that mean? It means that the air has beta detections that result in 240 counts per minute, when the normal amount, if you were to even call it 50, this would be about 4 to 5 times 50 counts per minute if you were to say that's the normal background of Tucson. That's a significant amount of beta radiation. We don't know why it's coming, why it's there, but it is there. Little Rock, Arkansas is another one we've been looking at. And Little Rock has been active. You can see it hitting here in late June, a little over 200, about 220 counts per minute. And here, yesterday, the 22nd of July, it looks to be about 120 counts per minute. Remember, 100 is about your, we should be concerned about this threshold. So that's not impossible to live with, but it is something to keep an eye on. Fort Smith, Arkansas interesting. You look at this. In the last week, its beta numbers have dropped way off. See that? This is up over 255 counts per minute, CPM. And Fort Smith, it dropped right on down into the probably averaging somewhere in the low 30s. That's very nice. Anaheim, California's beta graph works. You can see it's chugging along quite nicely, except yesterday, or actually earlier today, the 23rd, it jumped up to about 60 counts per minute. Totally reasonable in this environment. But look over here in April, mid-April, this here is about 245 counts per minute one day for beta radiation. Here's Eureka in Northern California. That's not so bad. Here's Fresno. In our last radiation report, we said that Fresno station had gone out because it appeared to have gone out. If you look on July 18th, if you look right here, this is, it wasn't working or wasn't being monitored in this period of time, but it is now. That's good news, and it's under 100, which is quite a feat for Fresno. When you can see right here, it's at about 370, and that's in early June. Here's Riverside, California, down to about 60 today. Here's San Bernardino County. This is another graph that works, and it's parallel to Riverside in its what it's getting. It's right next to it after all. Now check this out. San Diego. We thought that the graph had gone out on July 18th in our last written report. It was cranking right along, but I mean, we're talking low. We're talking 10, 12 maybe down here, CPM for San Diego, and it jumps all the way to 150 in the last 24 hours. Check that out. That's a marquee news for this report. San Diego, keep your HEPA filters running. San Francisco, no graph. San Jose, no graph. Colorado Springs, nope. Denver, no. Now you see these here. This is Denver's gamma gross rate count. It's quite active. And its beta graph used to work. Doesn't anymore. Here's Washington, D.C. Not looking too bad, but not flatlining either. Now this is very concerning. This is Augusta, Georgia. Check it out. This is the beta. Right here. Look how high it's been. Over 300 here on May 9th. In the last 24 hours, about 145 counts per minute when 100 is the uh-oh threshold. What is this? It's active. Look at that. Idaho Falls, Idaho, jumped to 100 on July 19th. But when you look at all this in aggregate, you get a big sense of relief. Fort Wayne, Indiana. Look at this. Check this out. July 18th, jumped to 252 approximate CPM. 252. That is cooking. And look at this. Very active in Fort Wayne. And you see, when you look at the activity of the beta here, And then you look at the activity of the gamma. You see how active the gamma is? It's not in total concert with the beta. However, when you go to a place like, say, Indianapolis, right here, where its beta graph doesn't work at all, look at its gamma graph, and you'll see that it's very active. Does that mean it has high beta? You don't know, but I gotta tell you, it's a better indication than nothing at all. See all the beta graphs that are out? Baton Rouge, Louisiana, looking pretty good. This is the lowest reading, and not coincidentally enough, probably, not coincidentally at all, the farthest from Fukushima, Japan. This is in Orono, Maine, and look at the numbers they're pulling in on their beta. This is just banging around, down around less than 10. Worcester, Massachusetts got a little active in the last week, almost hitting 150. Then another marquee item in this report is Grand Rapids, Michigan. Check this out. Look at this in the last week. It's been bouncing around, almost hitting 150. A couple of times went over 150 once, but here you have a march towards, now it looks like 300, but this is at about 280 today. And all I can say is that if it's raining in Grand Rapids, I'd think twice about going out in it. Here's St. Paul, Minnesota. Gets active here too. June 27th, almost 350. St. Louis, Missouri. Somewhat paralleling the ascent in Grand Rapids, Michigan. If you look at this here, it's going up to about 240 counts per minute, CPM, in the last 24 hours in St. Louis, Missouri. Another very active place that we monitor is Lincoln, Nebraska. Look at this. Last 10 days, it's about 360 CPM. Today, about 165 CPM. Eyeballing that graph there. You'll see us go by some graphs because they just aren't as interesting as Albuquerque. In the last week, we've got Albuquerque sailing north of 350 CPM. We're up in the 360 range. Now, Albuquerque, New Mexico is obviously in the same state as the troubled WIP facility to the southeast of it. These are very high readings, but it's interesting. It looks like it's coming in pulses. But that could be a function of the actual detector not working. But still, even if the detector wasn't working, it looks like it has pulses. And of course, back here in late March, you can see it's about 410. Syracuse, New York. What I find interesting about this is that the graph works, and I'm glad to see it. Hit 200 on May 30th. Now we have a radiation station, Harrisburg, North Carolina. This is the US EPA's RadNet radiation station, Raleigh, North Carolina. The beta gross count rate from March 25th to July 23rd, 2014. As you can see, in the last 24 hours, it has hit 150. And CPM, our radiation station, Harrisburg, North Carolina, reports uh, rain coming in at 9 times background in a report he filed yesterday, which you can of course see on EnviroReporter.com. Bear with us while we go to Toledo, Ohio. Very active at about 165 in the last 24 hours. Significant activity, but note, here's the 100 here, and most of this is underneath it. So you keep an eye on the stuff over it, but you know, take solace, most of it's underneath that 100 CPM threshold. Here's Corvallis, Oregon. Looks like on July 20th, 3 days ago, beta hit 150 CPM. Significant. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Looks like it got busy on July 13th here, going up to about 260, and today it went to about 165. Now look at this. You live in the Lone Star State, you live in Texas, you live in Amarillo. Look at this graph. Now my hat's off to the gentleman or gentlewoman that runs this station in Amarillo, because you're doing your country a service. These are very high numbers. I can't account for it. This isn't a huge distance away from that WIP facility, but before we even knew of troubles at WIP, Amarillo has had numbers like this, and uh, a number of the stations in Texas show high radiation readings, but this is extraordinary. If you look right here, this is at about 100. This is 855 CPM. This here, these two readings, one on April 18th and one on late March, both just went through the 1,000 counts per minute mark, 10 times the level. And almost all these readings are above, they're certainly above 50. And in the last 24 hours, it has gotten this number here. The height of this graph right here is at about 520 counts per minute in Amarillo, Texas. I would advise using HEPA filters indoors if you can afford it. Here's Dallas. Dallas looks a little better, hitting 300 here in May, but in the last 24 hours it was 150. Fort Worth, not bad. Got a pulse here. You can see this in these graphs. You'll see that certain regions will have the same pulse. San Angelo, Texas, quite active. Last 24 hours, it's almost hit 350. I'm going to back up here. I'm going to show you something. See this here? This just breaks our heart. This is a beta graph for Salt Lake City, Utah. Just kaput in early May. Hasn't come back on. Boy, we need this, but look at this. Look what it did do before it went kaput. Makes you wonder. But I'll tell you what, wondering won't tell me what the numbers are here. And they won't tell you either. Of course, you see a bunch of beta graphs go by that are empty. And then some that don't bear me commenting on, because your time is limited and we're coming down to close to the end of this weekly radiation report. Check this out. Madison, Wisconsin. Look at this. In the last couple of days, it has hit north of 300 CPM. I don't know if it's raining in Madison, but if it is, I would take precaution with children and pregnant women on their exposure to rain that would be this hot. Now, mind you, this is the air, so we don't know how hot it is. But remember, when we were looking at the North Carolina numbers, the multiples of background were less than the multiples of background that radiation station Harrisburg, North Carolina detected in rain in the last 48 hours. So you can have we know from that, you can have much more radiation in multiples of background than in the air. So this is an indication that if in the air it's this high, if it's raining, just be wise. Then come back and see us. You can learn much more about the US EPA's RadNet monitoring system, and you can see all these graphs at EnviroReporter.com.